Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a crazy story about an extraordinary thief. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Like mother, like daughter. Now dad is mad. Last night I got to witness some great stupidity in action. As I was going to take my break, security flew past me and stopped some woman at the door. She made a huge scene, but they took her off to the back and called the cops. As I was coming back from break, the police show up. I, of course, returned to work. I wasn't getting involved with the situation. About 10 minutes pass, and a woman walks up to me and asks if she could speak to a manager. I call a manager, and they come out to talk to her. Turns out the shoplifter was a 16-year-old girl stealing makeup. The woman was her mom, who was contacted by police to get her daughter, who was just given a no trespass order and a citation to appear in court. They passed on without anything out of the ordinary. Towards the end of my shift, I was talking to one of our security and said, I saw them bust the girl earlier that day. He then tells me it got better than that, and he told me the story. The mother was taken to the back of the store by the manager, and the police were still processing the girl they busted. The mother was asked to wait and told it to be 10 to 15 minutes while they did the paperwork. The mother asked if she could get a few things and was told it was okay. The mothers walked back to the sales floor and shops around. While shopping, she was being followed by another security worker. The woman grabbed some groceries and went by our hair care section and got a brush and a $60 hair dryer. She then proceeded to unbox the hair dryer and shove it in her purse. Security stopped her there and took her to the back. The police didn't appreciate the extra work, and apparently the mother was busted before stealing at a different store, so they decided to arrest her outright. The father was contacted, and he came in to get his daughter. The father was PO'd and had asked the cops for a copy of both citations. The dad was going to use it to his advantage to get custody of the daughter. The mother apparently was caught stealing so many times the father divorced her for it. I was told the dad was on the phone with his lawyer about getting full custody while he was taking his daughter out of the store. One hell of a day for security. And our second story. Shut up and turn on the gas? Okay. This is a really old event, and for the record, I'm a decent enough human to feel really bad about how this came out. After I was done feeling vindicated and amused, I felt extra bad because of those feelings, so I guess it somewhat balances. Back in the late 80s through the mid-90s, my dad grew watermelons every year. It's a good cash crop, but intensive on the physical labor side of things, and you're working hardest when the weather is hottest. You have to work really hard to pick the melons when they're ready to pick, as healthy vines will bump out growth and the remaining melons fast in late June, so you can pick again in just a few days. So only a certain type of person is willing and able to really capitalize on the crop. My dad was just that certain type of person. He was transitioning all his farming activity to row crops like corn and peanuts and cotton to pecans. He needed that summer cash crop of watermelons to stay afloat until the pecans were paying off. I worked for him at the time, and part of the successful transition from row crops to pecans hinged on using buried drip irrigation for the pecans. For 6 years, I buried drip irrigation for several months every year. We were able to water groves with $2,000 wells instead of the $200,000 wells needed with sprinklers. Big difference. Anyway, we irrigated the melons with drip irrigation too. Only it wasn't durable stuff used on the melons, it was thin, cheap stuff made to last a season and no more. The plastic film covering the beds was a millimeter thick and would photodegrade from sunlight in a year. The drip tape itself did need to be picked up and disposed. So this one year, my dad gets a bright idea to burn the film at the end of the season instead of letting it break down slowly. A local ad company has a towable burn rig you can rent. Now, this thing is just sort of the rig that no one in their right mind would insure. I'll describe it because it was a real monster. Alright, start with a 1,000-gallon propane tank. The huge kind you see in some yards, only that have to be filled every couple years. Now you put that mamma jamma on top of a homemade trailer made to be pulled behind a farm tractor, and you hook a pump up to the PTO on the tractor so that it can pump the propane, not just let it flow from expansive properties, because you need a lot of propane to flow for this kind of beast. The back of the homemade trailer has a support shaft mounted across it, and there are 2 long boom shafts on hinges that fold forward for transport but can be locked perpendicular like wings when deployed. They're 16 feet long each. The trailer's 8 feet across, so when the wings are deployed, this bad boy spans 40 feet. Every 4 feet on all 3 shafts, there's a torch. These torches are angled down and backwards. The idea is that a flaming jet of propane would hit every scrap of plastic film and burn it away. We won't even get into the environmental aspects. So this was August. All the melons were done, and the cleanup needed to happen. My dad rented this beast, had me hook it up to a tractor and meet him in one of the fields. There were 2 controls up in the cab with the operator, both toggle switches. One of them was to turn on the gas for pilot lights on the torches, the other was to go full-on burn everything in sight. But it was a windy day, maybe 10 to 15 mile per hour average. I was not comfortable. I voiced my objections to burning on a windy day and got shut down hard. Told to just do as I was told. Okay then. So I'm sitting up there in the cab following instructions. I get told to turn on the gas for the pilot light, so I do. And then I sit there for a good 5 to 10 minutes twiddling my thumbs because it's too damn windy to go burning stuff. It's too windy to get the torches to light. The breeze is so stiff it's dissipating the gas and blowing out the old man's lighter repeatedly. And I'm just sitting there doing as instructed. After another 50 or 60 failed attempts, my dad/old man/boss was reaching the end of his patience and yelled up to me to not just sit there, turn on the gas full. Now, I was annoyed and didn't want to be out there, but this just seemed to be a bad idea. So I spoke up. Me. But that'll... Him. Shut up. Do what I said. Me. But... Him. Shut up. Either flip that switch or get down here and light it while I flip it. We need more gas to get it to light. Me. Flips the switch. Torch ignites. Shoots a jet of flame directly onto the old man's sandaled feet. Yes, that's right. He was wearing sandals. And he lit a wide-open jet of propane that was aimed directly at those sandaled feet. I let out a loud bray of laughter just as I flipped the switch to off. The old man's head swiveled away from his feet to me in a trice, but despite my guffaw, I had a sober, morose expression plastered on. He couldn't wear shoes for a couple weeks. While he didn't need dressings on his feet, they were pretty well done. We didn't burn any watermelon film that year. That went a lot better than I was worried it would. And our next story. When are you going to finish? I worked for a few years as a contracted desk-side IT person for a large pharmaceutical company, hardware and software. It was salary, but we were contracted for 40 hours a week, 1 hour unpaid lunch per day, no overtime pay since we were salary. Our hours were 8 to 5, but being a 7-person team, we all rolled in anywhere from 7:30 to 9 a.m. and left at 4:30 to 6 p.m. Nobody abused it by coming in late and leaving early, and sometimes you'd need to stay late to finish a computer, so if you were there till 8 p.m. one night, management didn't care if we rolled in at 10 a.m. the next morning. We got our job done and had great customer satisfaction. Then our on-site manager changed, ex-military. What we needed was some discipline. This rolling in whenever we felt like it was not going to work for him, so instead of peeing on the desk to assert dominance like any normal person would, he made an edict his second week. Work starts at 8 a.m., not 8:05, not 8:30, not 7:45, 8 a.m. Your butt needed to be in the seat, logged in, and ready to work. We all worked in an open-concept cubicle farm, so he'd be there to check to make sure we were at our seats and logged into the ticketing system at 8 a.m. sharp. That Thursday, I was working on a laptop motherboard replacement. If you ever had to replace a motherboard in a laptop, there were screws and parts strewn all over my desk, neatly organized but full of parts. The client was up and running, and I had moved her HD to another laptop. This was to be repaired and go back into stock. I'm at the point where the motherboard is the next thing to come out when the clock strikes 5. I grab my jacket and backpack. Manager says, "Where are you going?" "Home." "When are you going to finish that laptop?" 8 a.m. sharp. He just could not grasp the concept that if we had to be in at 8 a.m. sharp, that I'd be leaving at 5 p.m. sharp, no matter what. Francis eventually did lighten up and realize that we're not on a military base. Hell, he wanted military precision, he got military precision. Butts and seats ready to work at the call of 800 hours on the dot. That also means butts up and out of the seats at 1700 on the dot. He can't complain. And our last story. Give me your farm. My aunt and uncle, neither of whom work, have been living with my grandmother rent-free on her 140-acre property for the last 15 years. The uncle brought in junk cars that he's going to refurbish someday and filled up the large workshop with junk, generally treating the property like their own personal dumping ground. This week, they informed her they wanted to purchase the property from my grandmother for $89,000, well below market value, but since they've done things around the property, they believe she owes them $40K for their services. The things they did: chop firewood, which they also used, spread gravel on the driveway to their apartment only, not to my grandmother's house, and other such services. The next day, they presented her with a revised bill for more services provided. Grandma's too nice to kick them out, but instead her other daughter agreed to buy the property at fair market value, and they informed the aunt and uncle that they had to look for a new place to live and they could pound sand on their supposed bill. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.